Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be episode 6, where I talk about some cool stuff using effects. A couple simple ones, but it's neat nonetheless. Focusing on modules, but I'm probably going to talk about a couple built-in ones as well, because there's just some neat stuff in there. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be talking about 4 things today, one of which is basically just a collection of animated things that you're going to use. So I guess technically 5, because then there's a Patreon page that I'm going to suggest that you check out, where the guy has been designing animated spell effects and other effects to use. So mainly though, the 3 modules we're going to talk about are Ambient Doors, FXMaster, and FoW. All things that I've used in all my games. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll pull up the tester one we've got here and jump into it. So let me switch over to the full browser so you can see it all, and we'll get started. So last time we left off with this here, and let's take a look at our modules. So let's add a couple here that we're going to be talking about, which were Ambient Doors. Just toggle this so you can see it. So it's a controller for playing ambient sounds when opening and closing doors. So basically, it's going to play sound when doors are open or closed. It's pretty straightforward. Let's see. We have animated spell effects. And for this to really function well, you don't need to, but I would highly suggest putting in the M.E.S.S module, the M.E.S.S module. It really opens the ability to deal with animated spell effects and animated effects really well. It's what I talked about a couple episodes ago. So there's that, and then we need FXMaster, and one more, which is called FoW. We're going to roll with those. Restart our game here. Well, it'll restart for you. And we'll zoom out of here. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time and fix this so I don't have to do this every time I come in and out of it. Okie dokie. So here's what we've got. You're looking at map here, and let's actually jump to, let's see, do I have something with a door in it? Yeah, this will work really well. Okay, so let's get this guy, configure it, fix that there. Okay, so let's see if any walls were built on this one. No. So I'm going to do a pretty simple, just to show you, here's a wall, here's a wall. We'll just do this main basic room here. Oop. Sometimes this is a little finicky. There we go. It takes a couple of clicks to move it around. Control click to move things around. Right click to dismiss it. We're going to make this pretty easy. Oops. Okay. So there we have a basic layout of this main room. Those are the walls. So now I'm going to go drop some doors in it. So I've got a door here. We've got a big double door there. Oh, it didn't grab it, it just moved it. And I'm trying to move that one, so let's back that one off. There's still a little couple of quirks with some of these controls in Foundry, and I believe they're being worked on, but yeah. So let's try, sometimes you have to click off of it and then connect it, then drag it back into place. Just the way it is. See, like this one, That was my own fault though. Draw one to there, connect it up here. This will just give you a good idea of what the doors sound like. It's a little crooked, but I don't really mind. Okay, so we've got all those configured. You can see the door icons here. Right clicking on it locks it or unlocks it, and then left clicking on it opens it or closes it. I'm gonna see if I'm hearing anything yet. Yep. Let me turn that up in case you can't hear it. Some ambient here. Really, that's what it is. It opens and it closes. Any doors open, close. Right clicking on it locks or unlocks it, gives you the sound. And then when you try to left click on a locked door, it kind of sounds like you're rattling the door there. So that's kind of cool. It just adds a little bit for your players. It's not a major thing, but it's just a nice. It's nice, especially as a game master, when you are looking at your notes and checking out a bunch of different things, to be able to listen for when maybe your players are exploring a map and you're looking at something else, or you're on another map because you're trying to preload something and get something ready. That audio cue, knowing that they're clicking on things, is often a nice help. So let's look at Ambient Doors here, just so you can see. So that's the default sound. If you wanted to change that, if you found one of your own that you liked, you could upload it and put it in and point to it in this directory. You can choose the individual volumes rather than have to mess with it there. Same thing with door open volume, door lock volume, and unlock volume. So you can have a little bit more control over it, and you can change what the default sounds are. So that's Ambient Doors. Very simple, really, really cool. It's just a nice little add-in. So that's Ambient Doors. Now let's jump over to, while we're here, I'm going to skip over to, I'm going to come to the spell effects last, and I'm going to deal with the FXMaster and less fog. So let's start with less fog, and I'm going to jump back to this scene. And what we'll do is let me reset the fog of war here. You do that by going to the lighting, and you can click on reset fog of war by clicking on the cloud, and it will reset it there. If I click on my character, everything is dull. You can see the edges over here, near the sides, and like the circle of what she can do. She's got dark vision. And that's why you can see that. If I were to drop it to 30, you see that her sphere of view is a lot smaller. And then as she moves around, she can see stuff. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to build a little bit of a wall. It's going to be a terrain wall, just to be able to kind of show you how some of this stuff works. So I'm going to build just a couple terrain walls. Did it again. Sometimes when you're zoomed out really far like this, it makes it a little more difficult. That's a tip for everybody there making lighting and doors and all that stuff. See? It's just not quite dialed in perfectly all the time. I think two really. Okay. So let's use that as our perspective. We'll zoom out a little bit so you can see it. And if I click on it, you can see the shadows where she can see and not see. And what you'll notice is that it's not exactly dark. It's kind of, there's parts where it's a little less dark, and that's what less fog does. So if we look at configure and we go into modules, let's look at less fog. So this is where the control is nice, because as the GM traditionally, unexplored area is completely dark for you. But what you can do is you can dim it out a little bit so that you still know that it's unexplored, but that your players can't, they don't have that sort of darkness level. There is still 100% darkness for the area that they have not explored. But for you, it's a little lighter, so you can just see what's coming around that corner. And then the darkness in explored areas is at like 75%. Dark areas is set at 60, it's not used. And then dimness or darkness in dim areas is at 40%. So it gives you a little bit more control. Like, let me put this down to maybe like 50%. It's probably going to refresh. Yeah. If I do this, you see how much brighter it is in here because she's been there. If I come over here, she hasn't been there yet. Now that she has been there, if I go back behind this, it gets a little bit brighter now. And you can see that the dimness here, where she has explored, is a lot less. It's a lot harder to see. So that's where that setting comes in. I like 75% or 0.75. I think that gives it a nice compromise, because then your players kind of struggle to see what's behind there once they've been there. That's less fog. It's really easy, but it gives you a little more control over what it looks like, especially for your players, and it's just cool. So I highly suggest bonus fog. I highly suggest less fog. It's a nice addition to it. So that's less fog. Let's look at FXMaster now. So FXMaster adds a tab down here and allows you to have a bunch of cool effects. I'm going to start with the ones in purple first, because they're the ones I don't use as much, and they're more like filters for the view. The only one I've ever considered using is this underwater one, and it's only if I ever had players doing an underwater battle. And all it does is it kind of gives the effect of being underwater. It's got that like kind of not shimmer, but a little bit of a wave. The other ones you've got here, like the Predator filter. So if you were like from the Predator movies, then you've got like an old film filter where it kind of moves it into sepia, and then you've got the bloom filter, which just like lightens and kind of darkens a little bit. But I prefer to do that with the daylight and darkness toggles, which is found in here, where you can transition to daylight and transition to darkness. So while that's there, it's not exactly my favorite. Now the ones that are cool are like special effects. They've got two here, and this is more like a generalized thing. You click it and then click where you want it, and there's like a little lightning strike. So if you wanted control of something, you've got those. Smoke bomb, lightning, fireball, nature, and sacred flame. So like maybe there's like a druid thing, or a fireball dropping in down here. So you can control that. The spell effects that I like to use, you don't even need those. But what's really handy in here is the weather effects management. You've got a lot of cool weather effects. You can have leaves dropping. It starts to, you can see them here. Let me zoom in a little bit. You can see like the leaves coming in. And you can control the density if you want more, if you want them to move faster. You can do that. Now we'll be getting a bunch more, and they'll be moving around a little bit more. So those are leaves. You've got rain, snow, bubbles, clouds, embers, stars, crows, bats, fog, and top-down rain. So top-down rain's kind of cool. Just rain kind of falling. It picks a spot wherever you're focused on and starts to drop rain on it. It's a little bit nicer, I think, than the other rain, which is just more of a kind of top to bottom sort of move. Clouds is kind of cool. Kind of get them moving across the screen that way. It just adds it adds some depth to the game, especially if you're someone like me who often forgets weather and weather effects, I find this extremely useful. And what's really nice too is what you can do is in configure here, when you've got this, you can have it add a weather effect. And you can say, oh, when I switch to this scene, I want clouds to show up. So if you come over to here, maybe this is the active scene, you switch back to here, it will automatically deploy the clouds for you. So you don't have to remember to turn it on. So you can set up your maps with those things on it. It's really handy, really useful. You can export them as a macro. So if you want to apply fire, you could put it in here and then you could click on it and you've got embers. Or if you wanted to put your fireball or all those other things down there, you can do that as well. So you can have them at your quick disposal. So that's pretty cool. And then here you can colorize it. So if you wanted to add a tint, maybe you're playing in the Abyss and your clouds you want your clouds to be red. You could offer, a tint to it. You can, oops, I forgot to turn it on. Yeah, you can offer a tint to it. So now like your entire thing has it applies it to the map, not to the effect. So now you have like a red tint to your map. So this is kind of a neat way to just go back and add just regular fun stuff to it. Change it up a little bit. Maybe you've got a map you like, but you don't. Maybe you want to use this map in the Abyss, but the Abyss has no grass. So you put a red filter on it. There you go. Think of it more like a filter than anything else. So that is FXMaster, and let's look at the configurations for it, just so you can just see what's there. And it doesn't have any. Built in, there's nothing you can control on that. So that's what it is. You can get it by this button down here, and then you can access it within the scene itself from this part here if you wanted to add a weather effect yourself. So that is FXMaster. Let me drop these clouds off of here. Built it into the map, so I got to turn it off there. Rid of this. Okay. The last one is the animated spell effects in conjunction with M.E.S.S, with M.E.S.S. Let's go into configuration settings, look at M.E.S S, bring up its new thing, and let's look at the templates here. So if you see here, we've got all these templates. I talked about them before, but now we can drop a couple things in here. Let's use, I don't know. I think I've got a fireball somewhere. Circle. So whenever a fireball is cast, you can have it default to this. So I could go into, I've already downloaded a bunch of them called tokens, animated effects, spells. There's fireball. So now if you're casting a spell, and maybe you don't have the exact fireball spell, but its effect is a circle and it's a fire, it's going to drop this on it. And it's just the way it works. Like it says here, allows you to specify default textures chosen for spell templates. If none is set for the item, the damage type of the first damage field of the item is chosen. So that's how it's going to look for it. You want this checked. Enable alternate template texture rendering, enables automatic targeting of tokens when a template is moved around. All the things I talked about before, that's in there. And then for 5e, specific things, numerical scrolling, sort item buttons. It just adds. This is the M.E.S.S thing. This isn't anything else. So really, it comes down to templates here, and I like having all of these checked. It just makes it a little nicer. So you can save and close. You'll have to reload everything for it to take effect. And then I'll show you one more place where you can individually alter your spells. So we'll look at the compendium of. Let's see. I don't think I have anything there, but we can look at the SRD spells, and we could say. Let's look at Acid Splash. That's a bubble. Let's look at Fireball. Just Fireball. If you go to the Details tab, you'll notice down here there is a template texture field. It's blank in this case, but you can click on the icon here. You can go into wherever you keep your spells, or your animated effects, and you can put Fireball in there. And then whenever Fireball is cast, it will now put this effect out there. And let me see if... I think I have to actually cast it for it to work. She's a caster. No, she's a paladin. Let me see if I can drop one on here that would work. Hold on a second. Let me set this up. It's going to take me a second, but let me set this up and that way you can see it. I'll be right back. Okay, here we go. So I've uploaded a new character. He's a caster. He's got Fireball. I've already set it up, so shouldn't have to see anything here. So let's go into his sheet and let's drop Fireball. Yeah. So let's roll Fireball. So consume spell slot, yes. Place measured template. So you'll see that because it's going to drop the circle of the effect area. So you want that checked. And then what we're going to do is you'll see that the M.E.S.S module replaces it with what we put in the spell. So we'll cast it. And you'll see right here we can choose where we want to. And if you'll notice, it automatically targets who comes into the area of it. So if you maybe were trying to catch a couple people and you only got there, she is not going to be caught. And it will highlight with those orange like pointers around the character when it's affected. And then when I cast it, let's say I drop it here, 8d6, 22 damage. Automatically, because of some of the other things we've talked about setting up, she has to make a DC 13 Dex save, which she makes, so she takes half damage. So it applies the damage to it with the resistance, which doesn't apply in this case because it's not acid damage. So it applies the damage. It applies the damage there. Kind of cool. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a 22 to hit, not 22 damage, a 22 to hit. So it did 31 damage. No, that is the damage. 22 is the damage. I don't know what this 31 is. Did with the 31. Anyway. And then one of the other things we talked about last time was one of the ones where you can reverse the damage by doing it here. These are the buttons. If it was dynamic effects that allows you to do that to reverse damage. So yeah, now you've got this really cool animated spell template out there. It automatically did the things, which is through some of the other modules we talked about. And it just adds a really nice bit of spice to the game. So you can load up a bunch of them and do that. So the two things I wanted to talk about in ways to get this. One is animated spell effects, and that is, you can get it through the Foundry thing, and that's this guy. It's his Jack Kerouac's animated spell effects. You can see all the ones that he's got here. They're all zipped in here. Let's see if there's a list of all of them. So he's got it broken down by beams. So you've got some generic beams, generic energy blasts. You've got some circles and some like shields. These are more, I think, of a sci-fi. They'd be a little more useful in sci-fi, but you know, they're free, so why not grab them? You can find a way to use them. What I really have found helpful is on Patreon, this guy, Dave Jordan, creates a lot of really nice, simple ones. Aura of Life. Here's a lightning bolt. Here's Ice Storm. Here's Gust of Wind. Grease, Glyph of Warding. He's got a ton of them. Earth Tremor, Fireball, which is what I'm using in Foundry. It's $3 a month, and it just helps small creators out, and I'm all about helping small creators out. So I would definitely take a look at Dave Jordan on Patreon. Jinker's Animated Art. It's not expensive, and it's a way to get a lot of really cool effects. Like, let me go back in here and just show you some of, because it's easier to do it. This isn't gonna, I'm not gonna apply this, but you can see some of the ones I've gotten here. So he's got Acid Spray specifically for the M.E.S.S module. Animated objects with the copper, Anti-Life Shell, Arms of Hadar, Bigby's Hand, Blade Barrier, Call Lightning, Cloud Kill. I mean, he's got all of these, and these are just the spells. If I go back in, he's got other, like, various kinds of fire. He's got campfire and candles, so you could set them out as icons on the VTT itself. He's got a bunch of miscellaneous stuff, bard songs and arrows, acid pools, a bunch of stuff. Traps, like, you can have a bunch of animated traps, and it's just really cool stuff. He's even got some sci-fi stuff. It's $3 a month. Help somebody out. It's good stuff. But that's how you apply a spell effect to replace the grid effect. So that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Hope this has helped you out in some way. Next time I'm going to be talking probably about some dice. It's not going to take very long. I might combine it with the one after that, which is combat, which might take a little bit longer, but they kind of go hand in hand. If you haven't already, please check out my podcast, Vice and Villainy. It's a true crime RPG podcast set in the Forgotten Realms, and we just have a bunch of fun in there. I've kind of taken a hiatus on it for a little while to recoup my creative juices and kind of work on these. So yeah, I'd appreciate it if you'd stop by and take a look. Wherever you listen to podcasts, it should be available, and hope this helps your games out, guys. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. Thanks, everybody. See ya.